We are continuing on with our quadratics. You are still going to do the warm-up here where you fill in all the vocabulary words because frequent repetition will help you put it in your long-term memory. So make a little sketch and fill it all in, or type it in as the case may be, however you like to do it. Hopefully you did all those just fine. Hopefully you can do it now without looking at the posters, but if you need to look at the posters, of course you still can. Here are the words on the linear one. Slope and rate mean the same thing. So if they ask you for rate or rate of change, you're looking for slope. You count up and over from 2 pretty points, it's rise over run. Where it crosses the y-axis, y-intercept is the starting amount on a word problem. And of course the x-intercept, zero, and solution all mean the same thing where it crosses the x-axis. And then on your parabola, we've got the y-intercept and starting amount where it crosses the y-axis. You've got the imaginary line down the middle, which is your axis of symmetry, and the equation of all vertical lines is x equals a number. The point where it changes direction is your vertex. If it's going up, it's a maximum. If it's going down, oops, that's not a very pretty one. Pretend that's a little pretty parabola. That lower point is a vertex, but it's also a minimum. So if it's a low point, it's a minimum. If it's a high point, it's a maximum. And then, of course, the x-intercepts, and there's two of those in this picture. I only had you label one, x-intercept, 0, and solution. Now, the other thing we did in this one was solve by hand. So I want you to do these by hand, not putting them in NSolve. I know we can stick them in NSolve and do them that way, but I want us to just practice a little bit on doing them by hand. Test day, you can do them by hand or put them in NSolve. I don't care which you do, but today let's just practice. Draw the line through the equal sign. You simplify if possible. Nothing to simplify on the right, nothing to simplify on the left because there's no parentheses and these are not like terms. So then you're ready to start getting x by itself. I need to get rid of the 5 and I need to get rid of the negative 13. Which one do you undo first? You undo, add, subtract before you undo multiplication. So what's the opposite of subtraction? Addition. We add 13. If we add it to one side, we must add it to the other side, and then we rewrite the whole thing. 13's cancel out. The 5x comes down. Equal sign comes down. If you've got this, pause the video, go finish it up, and then check your answers. Negative 33 plus 13. Bad guys are going to win. That's a negative 20. How do we undo multiplying? We divide by that 5. If you do it to one side, do it to the other side. The 5's cancel out. X equals negative 4. And of course, if you were to put the original equation in NSolve with a comma at the end and an X and close your parentheses, it will tell you X equals negative 4. All right, this next one, I want you to again solve by hand, and it's got an X squared in it, but that's all it has is just X squared. So you can do this in that same technique. We can just simply get X by itself. So I leave the X squared till the very end, but how do I undo subtracting 25? You're right, we add 25. If you do it to one side, we must do it to the other side. We're going to rewrite this. The 25 is canceled out. X squared is equal to 0 plus 25 is 25. How do we undo squaring something? You take the square root. Squaring and square roots undo each other. If I take the square root of this side, I must take the square root of the other side. And of course, the square and the square root undo each other. You're left with x, which is what we want. And then square root of 25. Now remember, there is two answers here, because 5 times 5 equals 25, and negative 5 times negative 5 also equals 25. So we want both the plus and minus 5. So make sure you wrote both the plus and minus. X can be 5 or x can be a negative 5. Both of those will work. So when you're solving and put the square root around the 25, then you want both answers positive and negative. Okay, now why were there two answers? Because this was a parabola. And how many places actually should be in a parabola that looks like this? And how many times did it cross the x-axis? It crossed 2. It crossed it negative 5 and it crossed it positive 5. So that's why in quadratics we're usually expecting two answers. On a linear equation, it's a straight line. And how many places does it cross the x-axis? Just one. So usually in a linear, there's just one answer. Quadratics, there's usually two answers. Sometimes there's none, and sometimes there's only one. All right, what we're doing today is another way to solve quadratic equations besides what we did yesterday, which was the factoring technique. Yesterday, we got it in standard form, everything on one side, the x squared, the x and the number, and the other side just has a 0, and that's it. So when you have it like this, we could have factored this side and then set each of the factors equal to 0 and solved each of those to see what x's are. Today we're going to do a different technique. Now yesterday's technique only worked if it was factorable. This technique works whether it's factorable or not. So some people just say, I'm just going to use this technique only because that way I don't have to worry about factoring or not, or maybe I'm not good at factoring. I'm just going to always use this technique, so you're perfectly capable to do that. This one is the quadratic formula. It is on your reference sheet. So in case you don't know what the quadratic formula is, and most of us don't have it memorized, it is on the reference sheet. Yes, if you look at your reference sheet, it is x is equal to, okay, because we're solving for x in a quadratic equation. Quadratic formula can be used for any quadratic equation. It will solve any quadratic equation, whether it's one solution, two solutions, or no solutions. So the formula goes x equals, and then it is, oh, I had to think about it now, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and extend that all the way across, because this is the square root of this whole thing, all over. Okay, it's not just this, it's not just underneath this, it's underneath the whole thing. So you draw the line all the way across, 2 times a. This is the quadratic formula. Okay, now normally x can be two different numbers when we solve. So you do it one time through with a plus sign, the negative b plus the square root of b squared minus 4abc over 2a, and then you do it math the second time with the negative b and subtract square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now this is full of a, b's, and c's. Where do we get the a, b's, and c's? Yes, remember yesterday when we found a, b, and c? We put it in standard form, and x is 1, b is the negative 5, and c is the negative 14. That's why we practiced that yesterday. So the number in front of your x squared is that, the number in front of the number in front of the x is your b, and the constant on the end is your c. We know the y-intercept is negative 14 if we were to go graph it, but we're not doing that. We just want to find the solutions. We just want to find the x-intercepts. So this is the formula we're going to use. So this is what I want you to do. I want to see the substitution on your paper. So what we're going to do is every time there's a b or a or c, we're going to make parentheses so we can drop the numbers inside. So first time through, I'm just going to write it with parentheses. So this is negative, parentheses where the b goes, plus or minus, and then a square root symbol, and it's b squared. So here's my b with the parentheses, and then I'm going to square it outside of it, minus 4 times a times c. I'm going to extend this across, minus 4 times a times c, and that goes all the way across that. And this whole thing is over 2 times a. So I have the square root symbol, the plus or minus. I've got this minus sign in the middle here. I've got a 4 and I got a 2 on bottom. Everything else are a, b's, and c's. So then we go back through and plug in all those numbers. This first one's a b, and the first one under the radical is a b. So b's are going in these two places. What is b? Negative 5. So it goes inside the parentheses. That negative 5 goes inside the parentheses. And then I have an a and a c on top. So a is the first one, and a is 1. And c is negative 14 inside that one. And then on bottom it's 2 times a, and a is a 1. So that's 2 times 1. Now, when you get ready to do this, there's a couple ways you can do it. I personally like to do this piece of math and get a number. I do this math inside the radical and get a number inside the square root. And then I do this multiplied together and get another number there. So I kind of break it up. Now you could literally do control divide and type this whole top thing in the top and this 2 times 1 in the bottom, parentheses and everything. If you're doing that, you wind up typing this whole thing twice. Once with the plus sign, hit enter, get an answer, and then type the whole thing in again with a minus sign here and get a second answer. Now, what I like to do, as I said, I like to break it up. So if you just put in negative parentheses, negative 5 in parentheses, this is going to tell you positive 5. Because the opposite of a negative 5 is positive 5. So if I wanted to break it up, this first piece here becomes a 5. And then I have my plus or minus. So there's my plus or minus. And then I have a square root symbol. Now, I don't want to do this math inside. So this is negative 5 times negative 5. So you can literally put this whole thing in the calculator and add, subtract. Parentheses, negative 5 squared, minus 4, parentheses 1, close parentheses, parentheses, negative 4, and close it. So you can do this whole math inside here and get that number that's inside. So if you want to, go ahead and do that. Put it in the calculator, see what you get. Okay, hopefully you went and put that in the calculator. You paused the video, you went and did that. This number inside here wound up being 81. So when we get ready to do this in a minute, this is going to be the square root of 81. Well, what is the square root of 81? It is 9. Now, we are not solving by doing things to both sides of the equation. So this time, this radical symbol was given to us. So this is literally the positive answer. So on this one, they just want the positive 9 out of the square root of 81 is going to be a positive 9. I'm not taking both answers because I'm not putting the radical sign around the number myself. It was already here in the formula. All right, so that's what's on top. Now on bottom, this is 2 times 1, so that is just simply 2. Okay, so now what you can do is this is much easier to put in the calculator, and you can do 5 plus square root of 81 on top, all over 2. So again, a controlled divide, 5 plus square root of 81 over 2, and then get that answer, and then put it in a second time, controlled divide for a fraction, 5 minus the square root of 81 over 2. So one time you do the math with a plus sign, one time you do the math with a minus sign. Okay, so go put those in the calculator, see what you get. I'll pause the video, y'all go pause it and put those in and see what you get for your 2 x's. There should be 2 different x numbers. Okay, hopefully you went and did that. And you should have gotten that x was equal to a negative 2 one time you did it, and x was equal to a positive 7 the other time you did it. So those were the two answers we were looking for on that one. -2 and +7. Now, if you're wondering about that, if this was 9, square root of 81 is 9. 5 plus 9 is 14, and 14 divided by 2 is 7. 5 minus 9 means I have a -4 on top, and -4 divided by 2 is a -2. So that's how the two answers wind up going. And again, you could do this piecemeal in this. The beauty of this is, whether it's factorable or not, you will get the same answer. So if it was factorable and these were the answers, you get the same answer. If you get some of those ones in between whole numbers, like x's are 0.238 or -2.34, you'll still get, when you put this in the calculator, and it'll give you this crazy funky decimal answer, and you just write those decimal answers down. You'll probably want to round them sometimes to the nearest 10th or the nearest 100th, depending on what they ask you to do. If you would got any of those this time, they would ask us to round it to the nearest 10th. Okay, so there's that. That's what we're going to do. So each time, we're just going to find our ABC. We're going to rewrite this whole formula with the A, B's, and C's plugged in, and then you can go put it in the calculator however you want to and get your two numbers. All right? So next one. Here it is, number 2. If you got it, give it a whirl. Pause the video and go try it. If you want to work it with me, we'll work it together. First thing you do is you put it in standard form. Is the x squared, the x, and the number all on one side with 0 on the other side? Yes. Check, it is in standard form. So now I can pick out the A. The number in front of the x squared is 1. The number in front of the x is a -4. And the constant on the end is a +4. So there's my A, B, and C. So now we're going to write the formula. It is -b, so I'm going to put a parentheses there, plus or minus, and the square root symbol, and it's b squared minus 4 times a times c. And all of that is inside the radical. And then this is all over 2 times a. So we're going to drop the numbers in. So this is a b and this one's a b. So I'm going to put b's in these two places. So -4 and -4. Where's the formula? Where can you see the formula on test day? It is on the reference sheet. Now, do you have to do it this way? No. We're going to be able to use our graphing calculators and go graph it and find the x-intercepts that way. But if you didn't have a graphing calculator, this is how you would do this. Okay, it's another technique besides the factoring one we did yesterday. So now we got the b's plugged in. We need to plug in a and an a here. A's go here. So my a is a 1, so a 1's going to go there, and 1 goes here. And then the c goes here in this one. So literally, I'm just taking this formula and plugging in where it says A, B's, and C, just plugging in those numbers. Once it's plugged in, again, you got a choice. You can either do a control divide and put this whole top in and that whole bottom in and hit enter. One time you're going to do it with a plus sign, and then you're going to go back and type the whole thing in again with a minus sign. Personally, I like to break it up. That's just me. So opposite of a -4 is a +4. I'm going to do it this way. Now, if you want to go put the whole thing in, pause the video, go get your two x numbers. And then plus or minus. And then I'm going to do what's underneath the radical symbol. So if I put in -4 squared, -4 times -4, this is 16. And this is 4 times 1 times 4, which is also 16. So I've got 16 minus 16, which is a big old 0. What is the square root of 0? Well, what times what equals 0? 0 times 0. So the square root of 0 is also 0. So this is 4 plus 0 and 4 minus 0, which means this is always 4. All over, whether we do it with the plus sign or minus sign, it's still going to be 4. All over 2 times 1, which is 2. So since this is 0, 4 plus 0, 4 minus 0, both times I do it, the top is a 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So this time, if you did it in the calculator, it tells you x equals 2. When you did it with a plus sign, you got 2. When you did it with a minus sign, you got a 2. So this time there was only one answer because it was the vertex touching the x-axis at one little point instead of the whole parabola crossing at 2 points. All right, 3. Pause the video, go try plugging it into the formula. You've got the formula on your reference sheet. I've also got it here for you to look at if you want to, and go plug it in. Hopefully you copied it out on your paper someplace or looked at the reference sheet. So is it in quadratic, or is it in standard form? I got the x squared, I got the x, but the number's over here. There's not a 0 here, so I need to get rid of this number and move it to the other side. So how do we get rid of this -1? We add 1. If I do it to one side, I do it to the other side. So I'm going to rewrite it down here. This is now 2x squared minus 3x, and I have a plus 1 on this side, so that's +1. They canceled out over here, so this equals 0. Now it's in standard form with the 0 over here on this side. So now I can pick out my a is 2, the b is a -3, and c is a 1. So now I can copy down the formula and plug in all those numbers. I have -b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times 8. All right, now we're going to drop the numbers in. B's and B's go here. So -3 and -3. And then I have A's go here at these 2 places. So A is a 2 and 2 there. And then C is this one, so C is 1. And again, I'm literally just copying this formula and plugging in the numbers that go there. So now, your choice now. Put the whole thing in the calculator once with the plus sign, then go back and put the whole thing in with the minus sign, get your 2 answers. Or do it piecemeal like I'm going to do it. Pause the video and go do it. And then you can come back and check your answers. I'm going to do piecemeal. The opposite of a -3 is a +3, plus or minus, and square root. If you do -3 squared, that's 9, and 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 1 is still 8. So this is 9 minus 8, and 9 minus 8 is 1. All over 2 times 2 is 4. So I can put this in the calculator, do it in my head with 3 plus the square root of 1 divided by 4, and 3 minus the square root of 1 divided by 4. So do the top first. So square root of 1 is 1, because 1 times 1 is 1. So this is 3 plus 1, which is 4, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. So x equals 1. And then I've got 1 again here, because the square root of 1 is 1, but 3 minus 1 is 2, and 2 divided by 4 is 1/2. So my other one is x equals, you can either do it as a fraction 1/2, or you could do it as a decimal, 0.5. So x is 1 and x is 0.5. Those are the 2 places where it's crossing the x-axis. Hopefully you got those right. I hope you did. Last one we're going to do. Again, put it in standard form. Pick out A, B, C, and plug them into the quadratic formula. We're solving quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula will solve any quadratic equation, whether it's factorable or not. So I've got x squared and x over here, and I got the number over here. So I'm thinking I'm going to move the number over this side. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides, which means 0 is left on this side, and I have 4x squared, and I've got plus 8x, and I got plus 7. There we go. So now my A, B, and C are right there. So they have to be x squared, x, and a number, and then you can plug them in. A is 4, B is 8, C is 7. Now we can drop those numbers into the quadratic formula. I have a -b plus or minus. I want to see the substitution on your paper. Square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Okay, go drop your numbers in and then go put it in the calculator and see if you get the right answer. Pause your video. Hopefully you paused it. Now you're going to come back and check your numbers. The B's went here and here, so you put the A there, 8 there, and the 8 there. A's went here and here. Oh, yeah. C's, let me think of it. 4, A, C. A's go here. So A goes there and A goes there. So this is 4 and 4. And we have a 7 that goes there. So if you go put this in the calculator, whichever way you want to do it, and find your answers. When you did this with the plus sign, did it give you a weird answer saying no real calculations? Yeah, that's your no solution. And then if you did it a second time with the minus sign, did it also tell you no calculations or no real calculations? So that means there are no solutions on this one. Whoops, I can't write. Let me put this down because I can't move the paper and do it. So no solution is the answer on this one. Meaning if you were to go graph this one, the probably did something like this. It never crossed the x-axis. So this is one that has nearly no solution because the probably never crosses the x-axis. And that's what you get in the calculator when you do that. You get that weird answer that says, hey, no real answer, no real calculation exists. Okay, so the next video will give you the next page, which is the old easy stuff.